Late 60s, all these kids that were kind of the fallout kids of the black nationalist movement, civil rights, poor white people's movement, Puerto Rican nationalism movement, they had street gangs in New York, in the Bronx, that were just essentially burnt out. At some point, very late 60s, early 70s, these kids were like, we're going to come up with our own peace treaty. Came up with their own peace treaty, decided that we aren't going to engage in violence. Well, what's the alternative to violence? The Zulu nation was born out of that. Africa Bambaataa, Kool Herc. Google these. I'm telling you, it's way bigger than any of the rappers you think now, and the story is way more interesting. These kids, they were children, got together in the park, stole public electricity, which I strongly support, and decided to do park jams as an alternative to violence. So hip-hop is not rap. Hip-hop is the thing that houses rap, graffiti, breakdancing, and DJing and entrepreneurship. And what it did was give poor kids the opportunity to organize as an alternative to violence.
But in 1971, the gangs figure out how to get it together. They form a peace treaty. They form a very important peace treaty.
And they come together. And so what happens out of that gang peace treaty in 1971 is the scene is set for a new sort of social kind of order amongst young people.
And then you have gang peacemakers that are killed. And in this instance, it was a brother from the Ghetto Brothers that was killed. That creates this crisis situation in which folks have to figure out, okay, are we going to, get deeper into this war, or are we going to try to piece it up? And they pieced it up.
When you read this book, and what Jeff unearthed was, this whole structure that, first of all, opened up the Bronx, the peace treaty, which, you get a glimpse of it maybe in Warriors, but to understand that there was a certain amount of agency from a group of people who had been written off and were basically abandoned is a story unto itself.
They put together one of the biggest, probably the biggest, definitely the biggest up to that point, peace treaty in the history of that city. And when they did that, that made it possible for folks to be able to perform again out in the streets, to be able to make music and dance in the streets, to be able to create art up in the streets. That's where hip hop comes from.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Bam Bam to the Hoe Avenue, conciliatory meeting. I guess you guys might know about that.
Yeah,
where they had
that
gangs.
71.
That's I hate to say it, but that's a big bullshit.
Yeah.
That Hoe Avenue meeting, was just, the venue was great because they opened it up. We were able to go there sometime and party and meet people and get out of there, but it's given more credit than it was.
That's right, because like you mentioned, rumbles continue to happen
all the time. Actually, after that, it didn't get any better. I remember the Seven Immortals. What's his name? The president of Seven Immortals. We got into something, a Soundview project, and it continued. It continued.
I heard even the Ghetto Brothers say that they started having jams.
They had a band. That's all I never heard the band. They made a record. I never really heard it, even though we was living near the Ghetto Brothers down the block from us. But I guess the Ghetto Brothers that made the band was over there by 163rd Street in that area over there, because I never seen anyone in their block parties. So. But they said they was giving block parties and they had pictures of the bands. I seen pictures of it, but I never heard their album though. Yeah, they said they did something with hip hop too, but I don't believe so. Yeah, because I never heard their album. I would have played it if it had any bearing to hip hop. Yeah.
Which is where we had that meeting in 1971. It was on December 7th.
71 or 72?
71.
71. Because I heard a lot of 72 thrown out.
No. It was on 71. Because that year, I know that there was only 9 gang-related murders, and in 72, there were 54 gang-related murders. Okay, so 1 a week. You know what I'm saying? So the numbers jumped. So that meeting did not produce peace. Just peace between the people that killed Black Benji. There were 3 gangs: the Black Spades, the Mongols, and the 7 Immortals, right? So I don't want to get too much into that because that whole story is in my book, by the way. You know what I'm saying? And they've told it, you know, they even made a book about it, Warriors, but that warrior story is fictional. That's not the way it happened at all.
I mean, once again, an erroneous narrative. It didn't bring peace to the gangs per se. I mean, the gangs kept going. As I told you, the gangs really died out like 75, 76, and that's where the advent of what came to be known as hip-hop comes in. You know what I mean? And the gangs really died out. I can speak on the spade. Died out mainly because we just got older.
In 74, 75, was it still gang violence going on?
Yeah, 74, yeah, absolutely.
There's a lot of gang, yeah.
Well, that's
the height of gang violence.
73, 70, even 71, 72 was, you know what I mean? It was very much gang oriented by that time.
And let's take it back to the Bronx real quick. You know, a lot of folks are asking you all too about just a shift, taking it back to the beginning, right? It happens in the Bronx, like the whole shift that you all bring about. There was a gang peace treaty in 1971, right? The Hoe Avenue peace treaty, where everybody got together at the boys club, and
Black Benji, all those guys.
Black Benji, Yellow Benji, Karate Charlie, the brothers from the Skulls and the Spades, and all the rest. You know, how did you all see changing to the point that you could actually bring it back around in 1973, 2 summers later, to be able to do the thing that you were doing? What was changing on the street, and what did you see hip hop doing to change things on the street at that particular point in the early 1970s?
Well, the thing is, when you would give a house party, or maybe the church would have a basement parties, and what these gangs were doing is they were really terrorizing people. They would just show up at your apartment and they come in.
We have friends too that didn't come and start nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So and come in, if they're looking for somebody, they know this person is going to be there. They'll go and try to shoot that person or beat them up or whatever, and terrorize the party. So when it started shifting now, a lot of people didn't want to be in gangs, but it was like, you're young, you're teenage, you want to belong to something. People try to get us to join gangs, but we didn't join any gang. Wouldn't dare join the gang. You know, so it gave somebody something.
It didn't work. It didn't, you know, they know me, but they didn't work. My father was on my ass. That wasn't happening.